All right, welcome to the Adaptive Leaders Podcast. I'm Albert Wolfe, and joining me today is JD Whitney, and we are excited to be talking about an article that we've just published called "The Quiet Skills Nobody Promotes You For." So, just in case you haven't listened to the podcast before, I'm in China. I'm the senior writer for all of our publications at Adaptive Leaders, but we are not actually a publishing company. We're a leadership coaching firm, and JD is one of our most senior coaches based in the US. So JD, go ahead and say hi, and then we'll jump into it.
Yeah, hello everybody. Glad to have you here today. And just a teaser of where we're going today. I want to read you something that Albert wrote just briefly here. And it says that the most common characteristics of leaders around the world, this is from Hogan Research, summarized by Albert. Most common characteristic of leaders around the world suggests that they're good at getting promoted, but not so good at actually helping their team succeed. And that goes two ways. Like Albert said, sometimes the things that you're doing that are actually good leadership will not get you promoted, and vice versa. Sometimes the things that get you promoted don't help you lead your team very well. Ouch. That's a scary thought, Albert.
It really is. And I mean, maybe I'll just put you on the spot here and say you have worked with teams across, I don't even know how many continents, and for decades in all sorts of organizational sizes and sectors. Do you agree with that?
I think it's I would say I agree and I disagree. Um I I think that there are people out there doing a great job at leading their teams and helping their teams to be successful. I think that it's also true that sometimes the loudest, most confident voice in the room emerges as the apparent leader. And there's a lot of biases in terms of how companies hire and how companies promote. That doesn't mean that that leader then can't be effective at leading their team, but it may mean that they got promoted for a different reason and they need to then adapt their behavior. Uh, so that would be one scenario. Another scenario, I've dealt with this a lot, where you have somebody who's extremely competent, even leading their particular team very, very, very well, but not showing up in the executive space, the political space, in a way that inspires confidence among the people who have say about who gets promoted. And so sometimes sometimes just as simple as visibility, sometimes confidence, um, sometimes various forms of initiative or getting bigger than how you lead your particular team can be important. Uh, so I would say, I've coached a number of people where we don't talk about how they lead their team because they're so good at it. Everybody knows they're good at it. But the company's wondering, can we promote you another level because we're looking for something else? And I think that pressure creates some of this dichotomy that we see. The senior executive looking at a junior executive is asking a different thing from that executive than their employees are asking of the direct reports are asking of that same junior executive. So I think that's an important clarification.
Well, that's really interesting
Yeah.
because you're saying you have seen that, uh, what Hogan Research is talking about, but you've also seen the exact opposite. Somebody who's super good at leading their team that's maybe not getting promoted because they don't have what, Hogan lists as the most common things people get promoted for.
Yeah. Well, that's the natural inverse of the statement, right? If I'm
Yeah.
getting promoted for something that isn't leading my team very well or to be highly effective or successful, then the reverse is probably also true. Some people who are highly successful are not getting promoted because they don't have the attributes that get you promoted.
Yeah.
And I think that's a tension that every leader has to walk in, because you do have a 360 field of responsibility. And I if there's a takeaway from me out of all of this, maybe even above everything else, as I'm thinking about it right now, is that I really do think it's critical for leaders to be attentive in a 360 way. There's a reason why we do 360 reviews, and how effective some of those are. The conversation maybe for another podcast. But I think recognizing that that you and your position have a unique set of demands coming from the people below you, from the people above you, and you have different ways that you need to influence people who are side to side and diagonal. And you have a unique combination of those that comes down to you, and how you manage those relationships will determine your effectiveness. So it's not enough. And I will say it really strongly. It's not enough for you to lead your team well, especially at a senior level. It's not enough. There are other things that your leaders need from you. It wouldn't be enough for you if one of your direct reports just led their team well. If your top performers were only thinking about the people below them and never considering what you needed or other members of the team, that wouldn't be adequate. So it's the same thing applies to you and your position, whoever you are. And simultaneously, and I think this is what many of us have experienced at some point in our career, is it is really annoying when somebody gets promoted because of the way they show up,
Yeah.
but then aren't effective at how they lead down.
Yeah, let me just read the list so our audience can know what we're
Yeah.
talking about here. Hogan has identified, and we'll talk a little bit about their method in a minute. They said these are the top 5 things that get you
Mm,
promoted globally, and that's one of the reasons this research caught my eye, is we work so much with global organizations. So globally, if you are good at these 5 things, you're going to get promoted. Inspiring others, competing with others, presenting to others, taking initiative, and driving innovation.
mm,
5 really great things. Actually, we we want people to do all those 5 things, right? We want people to be inspiring, good at competing, good at presenting, taking initiative, driving innovation. But but those are not correlated with leading a team effectively. Those are, as you
mm.
can just listen to the list, they're very individualized. They're very
Yeah.
much like, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to compete with others. It's not saying leading a team to compete with others. It's saying I'm going to compete with others and I'm going to win. I'm going to win the promotion. I'm going to win the proposal, the project, the bid, whatever it is. So then they have this other list, which they generated by asking this huge data pool of people. They ask the people that work for them, what do you want leaders
Yeah.
to have as their most important characteristics? And it's just, all that stuff is still on the list. Inspiring others, competing with others. There was zero overlap in their research. And I actually talked to some of the architects of this study. Um, I had a great phone call with Nicole and with Kristen, and they said this actually holds true at every level. It's not
That's
just,
crazy. Yeah.
yeah. So, because I wanted to ask about it, hey, are these people saying actually we want 10 things? Like, we already have these 5 because our leaders got promoted. They have those, but now we want to add 5 more. And they said, no, it's really just a different list that people are looking for. So if you're leading a team, here's what your team most likely wants you to be. They want you to be effective at communicating,
Mm,
effective decision making. They want you really good at accountability, integrity, and leadership ability. And I actually asked them in my conversation, I said, leadership ability, come on, what,
yeah.
what is that? And they said, no, at Hogan, that's about, leading teams. That's about getting the best work out of your team. So another way to think about this whole thing is, like, think about like a really good, we're in the World Cup right now. Think about like really good striker who's good at
Mm,
scoring goals and and running around the field and playing soccer or football. And then you promote them to being the coach of the whole team next year. Nobody's going to be surprised that those are 2 different skill sets. But in organizations, in
mm.
business, we often aren't thinking that way.
Yeah. Uh, Albert, it really struck me like, are you sure that employees said accountability? That's one of the things we talk with our clients. Are you sure they want accountability? That seems like, no, they don't, do they?
I know they totally do, because this is another reason it caught my eye, is accountability is, I would say, maybe the most requested topic that we get for come work with my team. They need, we need help, with accountability. That's probably it's in the top three for sure, if
for
not the
sure.
top one. And so, but exactly what you're saying, JD, is that's the leader saying, I want my people, my team under me to be more accountable, to take more responsibility and be accountable for the actions. It's not the this research is the team saying we want our leader to hold us more accountable.
Absolutely. I This is something that comes up so often, Albert, and I mean it's shocking and when we're working with these leaders who are saying, because when a leader says, honestly, when a leader says, like, we need work like holding our people accountable, it's like, well, where are we gonna start? Like that's just fair warning. If any of you ever work with us and you come to us with that, we might be starting asking you some questions about that. But well, helpful questions. But I think one of the things that really is shocking is the amount of time that people have an internal resistance, a barrier to change in the area of accountability because they think that they're going to be doing something terrible to their people. And I think that's why it's so shocking that accountability is part of this list. It's like, if I'm going to hold people accountable, then I'm somehow going to show up in the office as a monster. And what this list is saying is that if you show up and actually hold people accountable, there are going to be cheers in the hallway for the accountability. And that I think is something that probably a lot of you who are listening are thinking, wait, can that really be true? And the place that I want to go first, because probably many of you are or have been this person, uh, you're a high performer on a team. You're doing a really good job. You're putting in extra hours. You're delivering results. You're doing everything that's asked of you and more. You know your work is quality and good. And there is somebody sitting a cubicle over, an office over, in another city, in another part of the world, who is sandbagging it, who is not delivering, who is showing up late for work, not doing the things that are asked, doing the minimum required at every time. And at the end of the year or at performance reviews, there is no discernible effect. And you just head into another year of the same. That's like a pretty mild, like sometimes that person gets promoted and that's super obnoxious. But you hate that. And the root of that is a lack of accountability. And it can be deeply unfair. And when you start playing with a sense of fairness in the office, wow, you really demotivate people. And none of us like that. And that's just a very quick example. Another one that I can share, heard this from an office in India, fairly junior situation, in terms of where this played out, and it was related to a cultural question of how you address these sorts of things. But they had somebody who had uh, consistently shown up late and then falsified their time card. And in a team of 7 people, 2 of those people always were telling the truth on their time card and also were always on time. When you don't call out the 2 people or the 5 people who were sometimes late or the 5 people who falsified a time card, what are you telling to those 2 people? Like, that's not kindness in the workplace. Uh, so I would even go farther than Brene Brown to say accountability is kind. That's the path towards helping somebody be their best self. It's the path towards high performers being recognized for what they do and feeling that that's honored in the workplace. So I think it's so important. And I think a lot of leaders underestimate how much their teams are counting on them to bring that to the workplace.
Yeah, we basically we need to schedule our next conversation to be about accountability, I think.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Because it's and we have a number of articles and stuff out there about this already, and it is such a huge one. Let me just summarize it to say, if you're a leader out there and you're thinking, should I really turn up the dial on accountability? I mean, Hogan says that's what people want. JD and Albert are saying that's what people want. Yes, but
Mm,
you need to what people don't want is bad accountability. They don't want accountability done badly.
true.
And so we'll kind of unpack that in our next conversation about accountability. But this all boils down to one of our core it's really a conviction. It's a matter of faith. It's a matter of deep beliefs that we have at Adaptive Leaders, which is that people love to work and love to succeed in their work.
Mm,
And rather than trying to give them all this wellness strategies and incentives and getting them feeling better about their work so they can perform better, we actually think you start by getting them performing better, and that increases their engagement, that increases their retention. So we actually recommend and have for years attacking the performance problem head on, because when people are doing great and thriving at work and performing well, and they know that you notice as their leader, they want to stay. They want to stay at a place they're working well.
and I think, you mentioned World Cup. You can see like when a team wins, it like there's no question about engagement when your team is winning. Nobody wonders. Now, you can also have high engagement that lasts through a losing game or even a losing season, or like if there are other things holding people on board, values can be a big part of that. There's so many other components, but yeah, I agreed. Like we would strongly encourage. Uh, I think this was something also you mentioned in the article, but also I think it was quoted from Nicole, is that employees really know what they need to be successful. They genuinely want to work and they want to be successful. So I think the people at Hogan are seeing the same thing that we're seeing, which is that nobody wakes up in the morning, especially the first couple of days of their job, wanting to do a bad job. They want to do great. And what they're looking for them from their leaders is somebody who's going to help them achieve that. And as a leader, that gives you an incredible lever to pull to be able to get, top performance, great effort out of your people. So if maybe a thing to say, if you think about your team right now, and honestly, it even works with the higher performers, but if you look across your team and you think about some of those like mid-level performers, let's leave some of the really bad, if you have a really bad performer or two, let's leave them for now. This might work with them, but there might also be another reason why they're not performing well. But if you think about the people in the middle, um, when's the last time you had a conversation with them about, hey, what do you need to be successful in your role? They probably know some things that you don't know that are holding them back from what they're capable of.
Let's
Also,
just say
yeah,
they definitely know. They definitely
they
know
definitely know. That's
some
fair.
things that you don't know
Yeah.
about that.
And simultaneously, you probably know some things that they don't know, and that's
Yeah,
fair, right?
yeah,
Like,
exactly.
so have the from us, like the simple low hanging fruit is have the conversation, and uh, I would also say, and I think if we kind of zoom back out again, because we've been really looking at that team leadership aspect. For me, if that your people also want you, we come up against this with delegation a lot when we're helping people to be better delegators, which is another one of those things that we deal with a lot with leaders, and support them in. One of the things of delegation is you're coming down in and you're doing work that actually should be being done by your team. There's all kinds of reasons why people do that. And there's real worries and real concerns that drive that engagement down there. But one of the things that I've heard teams say so often about their leaders is, would they please stop? Not because I need the space, not because I want to do my job, but often because it's like, I can do this. But what I need you to do is get up there and clear the path so I can do my job so that we can win. So even some of these things on the list of inspiring others, competing with others, presenting to others, taking initiative or driving innovation, there's some almost elements of that where it's like I do kind of want my boss to go to war to clear the path for our team.
Yeah.
So I want you to have I want you to have, and so that would be a place where I don't know exactly what all their research says, but uh, anecdotally for me, the number of times that I've had somebody say in a 360, like, I need them to be doing that high altitude job up there, so
Yeah.
I can do the mid altitude job that I'm at. Um, because somebody's got to be doing that. And if you're doing my job you're not doing that job and that's going to hurt us. It's not
Yeah,
always
if you're
about I just don't like micromanaging. It's like I need you doing that stuff up there. So you can't just think about your team because that's not good for your team. So thinking about your team also implies thinking about the broad stakeholder picture. How do you get the right kind of alignment, the right kind of resources, the right kind of traction with different stakeholders to be able to, for your team to be able to thrive and contribute maximum value?
you mentioned stakeholders. I think probably that effective communication piece um, will that which is on the side of people want their leaders to
Yeah,
be better at this. I don't think it just means within the team. It's
sure.
also with the like you're saying, you somebody has to be at the high altitude level doing that communication. And I'm not going to do that. I'm down here. I'm doing my
Yeah.
thing. But you're also doing my thing. So what am I doing exactly? So yeah, just stay at your altitude for those things. That's a delegation topic. Well, let's schedule that chat as well. But I just
But
want to encourage.
yeah,
Okay, go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, I think I think this is sometimes a thing that people feel like probably everybody who's listening who's in any kind of leadership can totally relate to the feeling. And sometimes it's just worth bringing that out loud, which is that as a leader, that general, especially any kind of people leader, that implies that you have people who are reporting to you. These people have a certain set of expectations and a certain perspective. By definition, they're often closer to the problem or the where the rubber meets the road in whatever kind of business or industry or organization that you're in. But it also means that they don't have the altitude to see some of the things that you see. So there's a certain perspective that's there. Secondly, you have somebody that you report to who has more altitude than you, but you're also closer to the ground and the rubber meets the road moments often than they are. And anyway, regardless of all of that, there's a different perspective. And even if you don't include, horizontal stakeholders and customers and all of these other potential stakeholders that might be involved in your organization, we do some work with schools, talk about massively complex stakeholder maps. Uh, but you have people pulling on you from different perspectives and wanting different things from you all the time. So one of the biggest things for a leader is being able to navigate back and forth and translate back and forth those expectations and to connect the dots between those higher level layers in the organization and the people who work for you. And it's a really hard job to do that well. Whoever you are, take a moment of reflection regularly to just ask you. We talk about 3 C's of adaptivity. Often we haven't really introduced that yet today. But in terms of curiosity, a great question to ask yourself regularly is, am I neglecting any of my stakeholders? Am I failing to translate between any of the stakeholders that I'm involved in? What is it like to be me right now, even in this moment with these people? Leadership is demanding, 2x the business in the next 6 months, and people below me are saying if we don't get, ABC investment, then we're not even going to be able to meet our current demands. That's a hard thing to do, and just taking stock of that from time to time and acknowledging the difficulty. I just want to give everybody an acknowledgement that what you do is hard, um, and I think
Yeah,
even this research points to that.
yeah, and I mean, JD, you've led teams directly. I mean, we had lives, we had careers before we went into the leadership coaching business.
Yeah,
I led some really big teams. It's hard, and I don't think there's enough attention given to the fact that, and this is not really talked about, and so maybe I'll just name it. I would show up to work and not know what to do all the time as a
mm,
leader. I don't mean for the whole day, but for like a lot of times, I didn't know where should I be focusing my attention today? What should I be, who should I be scheduling extra time with? I have this little block or, my schedule's way too busy. What should I be changing about?
yeah,
So I'm conscious of the fact that people who are in leadership positions now listen to podcasts like this, and it sometimes feels really heavy, like, oh, there's now it's like more stuff
More.
that I wasn't that I also wasn't thinking of, and now I'm going to go away like wondering what to do even more. So I want to kind of counteract that with I think I want to go to the three C's now
Yeah, let's do it.
to counteract that. Being a leader is so hard and so complicated. And, research like this Hogan report is going to come out and say, and it's going to make every good leader look at themselves. Because one thing that makes you listeners good leaders is you're self-reflective. You look in the mirror and you go, oh, what should I change? What should I be doing differently? Um, Leaders who don't do that, they're probably not listening to this podcast anywhere. They're on their own path and they're not going to really adjust. So we're all about adaptivity. We're all about this is a lifelong journey. We're all growing and we're all learning. And we don't have to just be the same version of ourselves that we were before, but louder. Or we don't have to just be the same version of ourselves leading that team, but now leading this team. We actually believe and we work with all kinds of wonderful teams and leaders who have demonstrated you actually can continue to grow in really significant ways. Not
Mm,
just, I'm a little bit better at that, but this is still a challenge. We actually have seen and have experienced ourselves. Adaptivity is real, and you basically need three little levers to make it happen, which we call our three C's. And so, just in case you haven't heard them before, is curiosity, courage, and care. So just to introduce those to you, everybody listening to this show, you are great at being curious, at being courageous, and being caring. To reach your new level, your new version of yourself, you need to focus on one of those more than is natural to you.
mm.
You are naturally firing on all cylinders. You've got your curiosity, your courage, and your care already running at 10 out of 10. But like that old joke, one of your amps needs to go to 11. And if you can take either curiosity, courage, or care to 11 in this season, you're going to actually start to adapt and become a better version of yourself. And so we're coaches. I just want to pause and ask everybody listening, when you reflect on this Hogan research or the stories that we've told today, um, do you think which one of those do you think it is for you? Is it curiosity? Is it courage? Is it care? And we always clarify care is left vague on purpose. It can mean self care, it
Yeah.
can mean caring for someone, it can mean caring about something. We've debated these and refined these over the years, and we've landed on the biggest, vaguest terms possible so that you can see what strikes you. And maybe you need to lean into curiosity. Maybe you need to lean into courage. Maybe you need to lean into care. But if you can pick just one, you can start to actually adapt, and not just in a sort of vague theoretical sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great intro, Albert, to that concept. And I think if you apply that to what we're talking about today, the fact that what gets people promoted isn't necessarily the same thing that your teams want from their leader, then just right off the bat, it like a sign that you might need to grow in curiosity is if you have a kind of like whatever approach or like I'm all good. Then I would just really encourage you that it might warrant a little curiosity to say what's one or two questions that you might want to ask somebody or that you might want to even hold internally as you go throughout your week to wonder about that. Um, Courage might mean for some of you, maybe you are that like gets promoted really easy person, who embodies those attributes. And again, I think we'll link the article in here somewhere as well, so you'll be able to go back and see what Albert wrote about all of this, but and see that list. But the idea that if you're one of those people who does that list really well, it may require some courage and maybe even be a little bit challenging to your identity to think that, wow, I've been getting promoted all this time, but I might need to change my actual leadership behavior. That can feel like an indictment or an accusation. And really, like what we would say is along the lines of what Albert said. You're already doing well. That's why you are where you are. But is there a way that you can improve? And your teams might really be grateful for you courageously facing some of that opportunity. You also may be the reverse of that, where you're leading your team extremely well, but you haven't been seeing the kind of promotional advancement that you would like to see in your organization. And it may require some courage to take on a few of these other attributes. Sometimes, how do you show up in your team meetings that your boss is hosting? How do you show up in those kind of contexts? Do you appear to be driving innovation? A quick story, Albert. I know I want to not take too much time here because I know we want to wrap up in a little bit, but
No, no, we always have time for a story.
I have I had someone who was in a very, very large organization in technology. If I said the name, everybody would know the name of the company. And he was, at the least, I would say, their senior technical expert on AI. You can imagine in a technology company, this is a very, very smart individual. Tremendous honor to work with them and super bright. And their care was through the roof. It was amazing. They really cared about their team. They cared about the company. They were all in for the success of what they were doing for the customer, everything. Very caring, very sharp. And they weren't getting the kind of traction in executive conversations that they wanted at at the highest tables. And uh, one of the things that was happening was in all the frothy conversations around AI, which all of us have witnessed. This is going to revolutionize the world. This is going to change everything. And companies feeling like we have to make a press release, or after our board meetings, or our CIO for the press conference has to talk about something amazing new with AI. And what are we going to talk about? And people would throw out all these ideas. And here's the technical expert who knows that isn't possible yet. That isn't possible yet. You can't do that. That's against the law, and that will never pass our corporate compliance. Um, or that's a complete violation of privacy. And so what happened was, in these conversations, the conversation is going along, the things are getting thrown out on the table, and this person found themselves over and over again having to be the person to say, no, 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 no. And they were seen then not as a source of innovation, as driving innovation. They were seen as the brake. And so one of the shifts that we were able to make was to get that person to say, okay, how do you anticipate what's going to be talked about? How do you get an idea on the table that is possible? You had to speak up before everybody else and get this on the table so that, one, a workable idea gets on the table, because that's important. And then two, so that you're not permanently identified as the naysayer, as the brake. And night and day transformation in this person's influence in the company, and now they're writing strategy for very, very big things. And it's exciting to see that shift. So I just want to say, like, maybe you're that person who your courage needs to go in that direction. And with care, if you find yourself dismissing any of your stakeholders, I think that's one of the things I would just encourage you to think again. Um, and if you think that any of your stakeholders are not connected to your results, and so they can be ignored or not cared about, I think that might be a place that's also worthy of curiosity. Sometimes that's a good short-term play, but long-term, what we find is there's usually a balance of care that needs to be there. And anyway, that's my thoughts. Anything from you, Albert, on the three C's for people?
Well, I'll just point out what kind of just naturally happened just then is there's a lot of overlap. So
Mm.
if you're, leaning into care and you think, well, I need to be more curious about this person so that I can know how to care about them, but it's actually going to
Yeah.
take courage because I don't really want to talk to them.
Yeah.
That's that. That's they're not necessarily fine defined categories, but we've found that asking everybody to pick single uh, adaptivity 3C. Uh, just pick one and just whatever, put it on a sticky note above your computer screen. Um, I know somebody who has it as his phone background,
Yeah.
like the wallpaper on his phone. Um, just to keep that front of mind, you'd be amazed at all the little things that stack up to actually make you a different person,
Mm,
a better person. And so I'm just going to encourage our listeners to keep those three C's front of mind as you're thinking about, maybe your goal right now is to get promoted. So actually, that first list, that's really interesting to me. Maybe
yeah.
your goal is to lead your team better, or maybe you're going to try to do the impossible, which is to lead a team really well while not neglecting the things that will get you promoted. It's actually not impossible. We know people who do that, and that's really exciting work. And so you're going to need the three C's to do it, though, because you've already reached your current level.
Yeah.
And so to go to a new level, you're going to have to be a little more curious, courageous, or caring than is natural for you. So
Great way to put it.
why don't we just wrap up? We've got a standard wrap up question here. I'll ask you first, JD,
Okay. All right.
or I'll answer it first if you prefer. How has your shifting? How is your thinking shifted? You'd think I'd be better at asking it by now. How has your thinking shifted as a result of our conversation today?
I think I'm really thinking about the tension between the demands of different stakeholders. So this exercise, that the research was rather binary, um, and there's a lot of interpretations that you could come out of it. And I think how you phrase it is like, why not both? And then what is it going to take to do both really well? Um, and I think for most of us, we're like in all things human, most of us tend to go one way or the other on a paradigm like that. And so what does it take for me? What does it take for others to find ways to incorporate both aspects of that, to adapt, as we would say, to the different contexts that we're in, so that we're bringing the right toolbox to the right situation. Yeah. How about you?
I think I was really struck by your talking about courage. And if I look at the two lists, I think that the things that you get promoted for look super courageous to me. And you can kind of imagine
Mm,
the, climbing the corporate ladder, the corporate executives,
yeah.
they are high courage, high visibility people in general. Um, and they're good at competing and presenting and taking initiative. But then there's what I was really struck by was like there's this other side of courage, which is okay, now you need to do things like hold your team accountable, which is that's a different level, it's a different use of the courage muscle. And
Yeah.
so I just want to encourage the
That's a great way to
lead
put that, Albert.
the, I just want to encourage the leaders that are listening, your natural courage, I don't know why I'm latching onto that one, is actually going to serve you very well as you lead your teams more effectively, as you get them performing higher. It's just going to look a little different.
Yeah, that's a great way to put that. Yeah.
So cool. Thanks,
Yeah, it's
JD.
been fun. Yeah, great to talk to you, Albert, and thanks for listening, everyone.
Yeah.
We hope you come back and listen again.
Okay. Bye for now.
Bye for now.